All right. Well, everybody, welcome Danny Peavey from oneweekwebsite.com, our very first interview.
Hey Daniel, how's it going?
It's going good, man. So I'll probably mention this in the intro. I'll record the intro later, but Danny is actually a really good friend of mine. Him and I don't even remember exactly how we met. Danny, do you remember? I know
No,
I know it's through like friends with friends at our church, but Danny and I really connected over just entrepreneurship and building websites. And Danny has been killing it with his own web design business. So excited to just glean whatever I can get from you, man.
yeah, no, I think it was an awkward lunch invitation on my part, and I think I remember you looking at me deadpan like, what do you want? I think I had overheard you were doing something similar to me, and I was like, oh,
Yeah.
but I don't know if I overwhelmed you. And I was like, yeah, what are you doing? And blah blah blah, and you were like, oh.
No, I do remember that conversation. I thought it was exciting because I mean I was in that place of like just launching my web design business, and so you had questions, so it was fun to actually like talk to somebody who kind of knew what I was talking about with like funnels and marketing and stuff like that. And I think that that's really been that's the theme of our relationship is we can get together and just talk shop for hours and hours, and our wives are like, what are they talking about over there?
Yeah, little does the audience know we just had a 10-minute talk about tools
well then
before.
Well, then let's get right into it. So, why don't you share with our audience who you are? I really love to hear, backstory, like where you're coming from, how you got started doing what you're doing. Really, like your origin story. So, I'll just have you take it away.
Sure. Well, good afternoon or good morning or maybe even good evening to everyone listening, depending on when you're listening to this. My name is Danny Peavey, and I am the owner of One Week Website. So yeah, my origin story. My family is from the Massachusetts area. I primarily grew up in Atlanta, Georgia, and spent most of my career working for IT companies like IBM and Apple and Hewlett Packard Enterprise. Um, so, kind of my long story short is, I spent ages 19 through 32 working for those companies I just mentioned. And my job was to essentially help my customers take the technology that they were buying from the companies I work for, and I helped show those clients how it could connect them with more customers and make their jobs and lives better, right? So it was a lot of process. It was a sales role. It was marketing. It was operations. So not too different than what I'm doing today with One Week Website. But I started One Week Website about a year and a half ago, and it was after I had an experience working for my family's heating and air company. So my wife and I were living in California at the time, and I was working for Apple. We ended up having a baby, and I always say that shacks are $2 million out in California, and we were like, no thanks. And my wife missed her mom in Tennessee, so we moved back to Atlanta. I actually went and ended up working for my family's heating and air company for a year, and I was doing a lot of different things for them. But one of the things that they needed, because they were about 7 or 8 years old at the time, was a new website. And at the time, I knew nothing about websites. I knew, yeah, I just knew nothing. So um, they ended up spending $30,000 on a basic brochure website, and
Wow.
it took them a year to get. And the company, it's a great company. I definitely don't have anything bad to say about them, but they were a traditional design and development shop. So what that meant is that the company never helped them write words for their website. They
Mm.
never helped them develop a clear message. And I kind of walked away from that experience thinking, hey, wait a minute. Um, when most businesses need to get a new website, they usually have one of three options. They have a do-it-yourself website builder option like Squarespace. The problem with those options is that although they're cheap, they cause you to pull your hair out, and they have what I call DIY time suck. So the
Mm-hmm.
website never looks the way you want it to. And then the other option is usually a freelancer. Unfortunately, a lot of freelancers are very flaky. And so you may also get a cheap website, but the website may never really feel true to your brand.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like my family's company, um, who ended up spending a really, a lot of money for a website, the process took forever. It was really expensive. And it always felt like you were on a conveyor belt. You were speaking to a designer, and then a developer, and then a salesperson, and then a project manager, and then the owner. So um, I love the restaurant Chipotle. For those that don't know what Chipotle is, it's a bunch of awesomeness. Uh, some of that awesomeness has gotten to my belly recently. But the reason why I like Chipotle is because it's a fast casual restaurant. So you can go in, you can pick a base, you can add toppings, and you can get a relatively good meal. It's actually pretty good in my opinion, but
Yeah.
with great ingredients for a good price. And so I thought that there should be a website and marketing company out there for small businesses that took the same approach that Chipotle did, or any of these fast casual restaurants that you see, where you can come in, you can get a base website, and then as your business grows, you can add your toppings, i.e., Facebook ads, marketing services. So that's sort of my reason for starting the company and a bit of my Genesis story.
Yeah. I love it. I love the Chipotle analogy. It's so simple. You just kind of walk down the line. Okay, add this, add this, add this. And I think that that's so organic with how their business grows. People hear me say on this podcast, and just if they followed me for a while, like, your website it's your foundation. Like, that's number one. And what is it at Chipotle? You got to choose is it a bowl, or is it the tortilla? That it's the same thing. Like, you start here, but then what can you add? What can you layer on to make the experience better? Make your business more delicious. If we're just going to keep using that analogy.
Yes, it's 9 a.m. and I'm very hungry.
Well, cool, man. And one thing I'd love to get into is, I know that you're a certified StoryBrand guide, and that's another thing that a lot of people have heard me speak about is the StoryBrand framework. And I think that it's such a great framework and can really be applied so simply to private practice websites. Could you explain a little bit about just like, what's StoryBrand 101?
Yeah, StoryBrand. It's interesting because I'm sure maybe a lot of people listening have heard about it by now because it's actually getting quite popular. But StoryBrand essentially takes story, which is probably the top vehicle that I'm aware of, even as far as how human beings have passed down information generation after generation. But StoryBrand is a marketing framework that uses story as a way to help businesses clarify their message. And the premise is based on the idea that most companies waste a lot of money on marketing. And the reason why they do is because their messaging is confusing and not clear. So StoryBrand offers really almost a democratized way, a very simple way, a 7-step process so that any business that feels like their messaging is confusing can really clarify it in an easy way.
Mm-hmm. And I guess what's sort of like the biggest takeaway that you have gotten from using the StoryBrand framework with your clients?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I gravitated towards StoryBrand because, again, the premise of One Week Website was that, the reason why I called it One Week Website is because, we're going to work on your content first, and then we're going to build your website in a week. So, but even that, like, messaging was confusing to my clients because it was too deep in the technical weeds. So when StoryBrand came out, and I really saw that Don Miller, who wrote the book StoryBrand, was really promoting the message of clarity and great copy and simplicity, I gravitated towards it because he was doing a lot better of a job than my company, One Week Website, who, we're still a startup, a year and a half old. So that was the reason why I decided to become a story brand guide, is because of what my family's company went through, again, with the company developing a website and not being able to write words that were really clear. Which I believe, other than a great design, the words on a website are the most important part of a website. But as far as how I use that with my clients, it is probably one of the, or if not the top satisfaction that I get as a business owner and as someone that can sit with a CEO and look him or her in the eye and really see all the gold that's inside of them and inside of their business. Because a lot of us as CEOs and business owners, we know the stuff.
Yeah.
Right? We know what makes us and our businesses awesome. So what I do with StoryBrand that's really amazing is I sit with a business owner and they may be pulling their hair out. They may be confused. They may be unsure how to say what it is they do. And I take them through sometimes just a 90-minute call or even a 2-hour call. And I take all the stuff and I compartmentalize it for them in a way that not only they can understand, but their clients can understand. And I've had dozens and dozens of experiences like that. And I can tell you, Daniel, I mean, they've been really sometimes like, I don't know if cathartic's the right word, but like emotional, really spiritual, even sometimes experiences. Yeah. You've Create My Therapist website. Like I have a company, like if you create a company from scratch and then your messaging doesn't feel right, but then in a 2-hour session, you can get it clarified. And then you can say a 90-second script back to yourself or back to your clients that really hits the nail on the head of what it is that you do. Yeah. It's really mind blowing. I mean, I have a lot of like wow, like it's super, super fun. I get such a joy out of it because I think, frankly, I've been there. I've been that person that has had something inside of him that needs to come out, and I never had anybody walk me along the path, and I feel like I'm kind of giving that back and moving that in my life.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome, and I totally relate to that because I've read the book and I've gone through the brand script, which is what they call the framework, where you really figure out what is it that your client actually wants, and just the process of sitting down and just thinking about some of these questions that that StoryBrand poses. Just it kind of eliminates, well, for me in my experience was like, how do I say what my client wants, or how does a therapist focus on their clients as the hero of the story rather than just saying welcome to my website, I'm a therapist, and it kind of eliminates that questioning. Like for me, it was like, are these words good? Is it focused on what it needs to be focused on? But having a simple framework, you kind of get to the end of it, you go through the exercise. And I just encourage everybody to check out StoryBrand and go through these exercises because it does give you some of those aha moments. It gives you a way to transition from talking about the client's problem to talking about here's what you do next, how to get started, all that stuff. So I kind of had that experience as well, going through with just the aha moments and realizing, wow, this makes total sense.
Yeah, and I love it. I love it for those same reasons. And we're in a Netflix generation. I love TV. I love movies, and I think even if you go through StoryBrand and you think about story, you'll think about your favorite TV shows and your favorite movies. And Don, who wrote the book, says that going through StoryBrand will ruin movie.
Yes, it's done that for me. Yeah.
But it'll help you to pretty much say, oh, okay, that's why that Friends episode was written that way, right? Or whatever right. Your show is. That's why Breaking Bad, that's why Walter White went through that, right? Or just whatever it is.
Exactly. Yeah. So can you take us through just like really quick the steps of StoryBrand? And then, at the end, we can just kind of tie this back together into, how can therapists apply this to their own marketing?
Yeah, totally. So it's pretty easy. There are 7 steps. So, every great story, first of all, has a character. So a character is someone that is the main protagonist of the story. So for everyone listening with a private practice, that's the person that you're meeting with every week, right? That's the person coming to see you. Um, and the character, the second part of StoryBrand is a problem. So any great TV show, movie, story, characters always run into a problem. There's something that they're trying to get past or move beyond in their life to get what they want. The third part is there's a guide of the story. So the guide of the story is always that secondary character that comes along to really help the main character, which in this case we'll now call the hero, get what they want. So Yoda was the guide in Star Wars that helped Luke Skywalker become who he needed to be. Morpheus in the Matrix was a guide that helped our hero Neo become the one. So the fourth part of the story is a plan. So you need to give your clients a really simple marketing plan. So this is not a sales plan or even an operational plan. Clients need a 3 or 4 step process that they can see on your website that says, oh, okay, here's how I get the life I want, or here's how I get those things I'm looking for. The fifth part is called a call to action. There are a couple of different types of call to actions, but the main one that the listeners need to think about is what's that big button on your website. If there's not a big button on your website, then clients are really probably missing out on getting in touch with you or doing the things that you want them to do on your website. And then the last 2 buckets are success buckets and failure buckets. If you watch a romantic comedy, the character of the story, once they get through their problems, they're going to fall in love, meet somebody amazing. So there are really simple success buckets that your clients have. And it's really important for us in a really simple way to just call those out on a homepage or call those out on a website. So we need to show people what life is like after they get done working with you. And then the last one is failure, which we don't talk about too much because we don't believe in fear mongering. But failure is what will continue to happen to people if they don't work with you. Now, all 7 of the buckets are really leading to the main goal of StoryBrand, which is a character transformation. So, the best brands in the world, if you look at their marketing, they live in character transformation. And what that means is if you think about Coke doesn't sell sugar water. They say enjoy life. So they're just doing character transformation, or they're like, hey, you're going to enjoy life when you have a Coca-Cola, right? So, and frankly, that's where we really start with a lot of brands is like, hey, who's your customer now? Who's your character now before they work with you? And really, who do they want to become after they work with you? And then let's make sure we show pictures of that success on the website. So those are really the buckets we need to fill in when you decide to go through StoryBrand.
Yeah, it's so great and it's so simple. And as I rehear it over and over again, I'm thinking about current websites I'm working on. I'm thinking about my own website. Like as you're going through those buckets, it really helps you envision like what would be on a homepage. Like it really like leads you through what the messaging can be. So I appreciate StoryBrand so much, and I can't recommend it enough. I keep talking about it and keep talking about it. I might have to get certified myself someday.
Highly recommend it.
All right, awesome. Well, what's let's see here. Where do we want to go with this? What's the simplest thing that someone can do to incorporate story into their website? Like they come away from this podcast today, what's one small win that they can take away to get started using story?
Yeah, that's a great question.
besides reading the book?
Besides reading the book, okay, because that was going to be what I was. Yeah, if you don't have the book, I mean, $10, go to Amazon, buy it. If you're a
Yeah.
marketer, if you own a business, you need to read the book. So, yeah, I think number one, if you can fill out your own brand script, go ahead and go through the exercise. Don does a great job teaching the framework. Guides like myself are really here for execution. So, if you need help executing, get with a guide. But I think as far as, quick changes or quick hit bullets is, go to your homepage and ask yourself, do I have one big button that's really clear, right? Is there a big fat button at the top right of my homepage and right in the middle of that first section that tells people what to do? And is it clear and is it direct? We don't want to have these call to actions that are what I call flimsy, like, hey, learn more, or, give us a call. I mean,
Yeah.
when you and I were dating our wives and we were ready to propose, we didn't say, hey, do you want to learn more? Or do you want to contact me? Why? Because it's not direct. I think sometimes entrepreneurs don't want to feel too salesy, but your
Yeah.
call to action, that big button, really needs to be direct, because when people's needs and their budget align with your services, it's actually a disservice to not have a really big button to show people
Yeah.
what to do.
Right. Yep.
So whether that's schedule, some clients say, okay, well, what's a great call to action? On our website, we have schedule a call.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a really good standard one to go with. But there are a lot of great examples that you can find of strong call to action. So that would be my main thing is, do you have a big button? And then I would look at the copy, and do you have too much copy? Do you have too much web copy? Ask yourself the question, is my website creating anxiety for people, or is it reducing anxiety?
Mm.
If you
That's
don't know,
pretty applicable for
yeah,
for therapists and people in private practice, because a lot of people are showing up with anxiety already with reaching out for a therapist. So if you're adding more anxiety with your website copy and marketing, you got to look at that.
so people are going to walk in and say, hey, can you cure me of my anxiety because I saw your website? And then can you cure the anxiety I have about whatever?
Exactly. We do not want that. Oh, but that's so good, and it's really, I think that it's when you're creating marketing, copy, and you're building a website, it's like you got to kind of get that first copy out of you, and even get it up, and even if it's live on your website, I don't want people feeling like they're doing everything all wrong, because there's obviously, you're going to hear new things about, you should do this or do this with marketing, but once you have that first copy up, like, definitely go back and take a look, and make sure it is clear and it is as simple as it needs to be. And back to your point about, making your calls to action clear, I see a lot of private practice websites, and I do see a lot of, learn more, and even contact me can sometimes be pretty vague. It just kind of goes to a contact page, and then it's like there's a phone number or an email address or a form. So even that can be a little vague, but a lot of people do that, like a free consultation, which could be just schedule a consultation. Like, that's pretty clear. Like, you're going to click this button and schedule a consultation. And I think that would help increase conversions.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think simple wins, and, less is more is really the framework to think through.
Yeah. I might butcher this quote, but I think I remember seeing a quote by Don Miller that was, I think it was, when there's confusion, I totally butchered it. I just lost it. I'll have to look it up. It's on the point of, like, clarity wins. I think it was like, when there's confusion, the client loses, or they leave. Basically, was the premise of it. It was like, if someone's confused, they're just gonna leave. And so if you create that confusion with your copy,
Yeah.
they might just bounce because they have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah. I think it's, if you confuse, you lose.
Something like that. Yeah. There you go. Thank you.
It has to rhyme.
It has to rhyme. Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny, I couldn't remember that. Yeah. That's good. All right. Well, is there anything else that you that you have for us that you can encourage people with clarifying their message?
Um, like I said, I think the main thing is just to think about, everyone that runs a private practice should think about their marketing message and their marketing materials and their website copy and their website and social media through the eyes of their clients.
Mm.
Clients are not living the story of a therapist; they're living their own story, and really what they're looking for is someone else to help them overcome what's going on in their life. And
Yeah.
so, you know, that'd be my main encouragement is like, look at all your marketing material and say, is it about you or is it about your clients?
That's good. That's really good. That's another thing I see a lot with a lot of the websites I look at. It's very focused. It kind of makes sense though, because you've got an about me page usually, but people make it all about themselves, instead of focused on the client. And I always say that people don't want to work with you until they know that you can actually help them. So keeping it focused on them first helps them kind of buy in and say, okay, I can connect with this person. They understand what I'm going through, and then let me learn more about them as a person, as a therapist.
Totally.
It's good stuff, man. Awesome. Well, one last question, and that is, what is a book you've recently read that has impacted you? Just so people can learn a little bit more about the man behind Danny Peavey.
That's a great question. I am notorious for having a stack of books that
that you're working on.
That I'm working on. Actually, my wife. That's kind of like one of my main little jokes with her, or something. She kind of pokes at me about is like, hey, got another book in today. They had another Amazon delivery, but yeah, I have a lot of books I want to read. I'm trying to think of one that I've read recently that has made the most impact.
I should have told you I was going to ask you this question.
No, you're great. The one, the only book, the book that I've read the most of, I should say, is it's called Shoe Dog, I believe, by the founder of Nike.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Did you read that book?
Yeah, I read it about 6 months ago. It's awesome.
Did you finish the book?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm typically 9 out of 10 times I'm a finisher of books. Like I like to finish the one and then go on to the next one. But there are those seasons where like a book maybe doesn't inspire me as much, and then I end up picking up something while I'm reading the other one. But that one I did finish.
Yeah, I read most of that book, more than a chapter. But I thought it was, I don't know. I love it when entrepreneurs get really granular on their process and their story. And there was like more detail in that book than even, I'm not saying I would need, but I admired the fact that he remembered as much as he did. I mean, he went year by year.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And, but it was very refreshing because most books that are written by an entrepreneur don't go into any depth as far as the process or what they did and why they did it and getting super vulnerable. And so I thought it was really refreshing for arguably one of the best brands in the world.
Yeah.
For somebody to go painstakingly through everything that he did, right and wrong, how he was thinking, how he was feeling. It was massively refreshing. And as an entrepreneur, it just encouraged me to, to want to get vulnerable in my story and to give away as much as I can.
Yeah. The thing that I took away from that was like, wow, this $1 or $1 billion company, like he was making up a lot of stuff as he was going along. I'm like, oh wow, okay, so I'm not that far off, because as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, you kind of every year or every month you're looking at what can I do to increase business, what could I do to make a better product, and so it's just like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I had that same thought too. I was like, I forgot the problem I was having at the time, but I'm like, hey, this guy was getting shoes from Tokyo and saying they're Nikes. I'm like, I can overcome that problem I have in Trello.
Right.
If the Nike founder can fly around the world to grab shoes and slap Nike on
Right. That's awesome.
them.
All right, man. Well, thank you so much for your time and for being my first guest on the Private Practice Elevation podcast. Hopefully, it wasn't too painful for you.
That was great. Congratulations on the launch
Thanks, man.
for you.
And so, where can people find you online?
Yeah. So my personal Instagram is just Danny Peavey. You might see really awkward photos and random jokes, but that's my personal
And
Instagram.
maybe some rapping too. There's been known to be rapping.
There might be a lot of strange things happening there. But no, our 1 week website. So it's ONEWEEK and then website singular.com. If you need to get a great website or a marketing plan, come check out oneweekwebsite.com. We are also launching. I'm actually launching 1 Minute Marketing, which is going to be an on-the-go, digestible, marketing tips for entrepreneurs. But all of that information and all of those things can be found at oneweekwebsite.com.
Awesome. Well, we'll put all that in the show notes for this episode. And thanks again, Danny. It was great having you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.